You should find an outlet.
I have plenty of outlets.
I meant besides vaginas.
Even though I played a bit of the first game years ago, the Assassin's Creed series has still felt like a major gaming blind spot of mine. I remember these games being a pretty big deal to my primary school classmates, and it stuck around as a popular and much discussed series that's arguably shaped the climate of open world games for better or worse. So earlier this year, I finally kicked this series off my bucket list with arguably its most iconic installment, as well as its follow-up, and, well, I've got some thoughts. I guess the one downside to not properly playing the original beforehand is, for as cool a narrative framing device the Animus is, I didn't have much interest in the Desmond side of the story in Assassin's Creed 2. But as it's not a big part of the game, it wasn't a massive detriment to my experience. And to be honest, even if I had, I still don't think I'd be that invested in the plights of Ezio Auditore di Firenze in this game. It's not bad, but it feels like Ezio's inner crusade is resolved very quickly, and from there, the game just hops between different objectives and introduces lots of new characters who don't get enough time to be fleshed out properly. And speaking of time, the way the game jumps ahead in years throughout wasn't noticeably impactful to the world or characters to me. Now, the picture I'd painted of this series in my mind was one of sneaking around, killing people without being detected, a proper stealth game basically. But playing this, while those elements are sort of a part of it, I found it very hard to remain totally undetected and, more crucially, very easy to complete the missions when I got caught anyway. So I mostly found this to be a more typical open world action affair. There were definitely a few moments where I was disappointed not to be playing stealthily, especially when it would set you up to do so only to pivot the mission in another direction. But there are the odd times when it would be feasible, and it'd be fun, like this part where you have to take down those guarding several rooftops surrounding this one building to get to your target without being shot at. Besides, it wouldn't be fair to judge the game based on what I wanted it to be, so for what it is, how did I find AC2? While travel time can be a bit excessive, free running is very fun. It's pretty satisfying leaping across and scaling rooftops, and I found myself enjoying going off the beaten track to find collectibles or activating the towers, then leaping off them. Unfortunately, I found the majority of the main missions to be very uninteresting to play through. First, there's these ones where you just walk while exposition is delivered or you're tailing someone. Oh man, these are so damn boring, especially as this was made in a time before NPCs would match or exceed your speed. So I often found myself idling around waiting for the NPC to catch up already. And then there's the action. While there are some pretty cool and varied weapons to use, especially the throwing knives, the attacks don't always feel responsive, especially the counterattack. The lock-on is clunky, flailing about to enemies seemingly at random, and most importantly, it's just a bit dull. And this is pretty much the bulk of the gameplay, so I found myself with little incentive to continue playing. So yeah, getting straight to the point, I was rather disappointed by what Assassin's Creed 2 is. Maybe it is hard to judge out of context because it was influential to many games I've already played, but I guess my point then is I don't think it's aged particularly well. Now, where I bought the first 3 games in the series together years ago, I thought it was worth trying at least a little bit of Brotherhood to get a feel for any gameplay improvements. And right from the off, I noticed the swordplay is much better. Not only does it feel more polished and responsive, but counterattacks result in insta-kills and a faster pace for fights. And I wound up playing a lot more of this game than I expected to, because not only do I think it is a significant improvement on its predecessor, but it helped me understand and articulate my feelings on my experiences with this series a lot better. Before anything else, I do have to quickly admit that while I said the combat was improved here, I did find myself mainly waiting around to perform those counter-attack kills, and I never could figure out how to do the free flow, and so it was still a bit tedious. But it is much less of a present, and the missions in general are a lot more fun and varied. Visiting the ruins of Ezio's former base of operations as Desmond I thought was really cool. There are several fun set pieces sprinkled throughout, and what do you know, stealth is more doable and it's pretty fun to sneak up on guards and wait for the perfect time to assassinate. Although in fairness to 2, Brotherhood finally made me understand why stealthier play isn't always ideal in both these games. The Leonardo missions in Brotherhood ask you to remain completely undetected. It's a fun challenge for sure, but as I'm scaling these rooftops, I noticed the lack of any crouch or cover system means I can only awkwardly stand around, which got me caught a couple of times. Especially in an open world setting like this where guards can be positioned in all sorts of directions, that's pretty annoying. However, having these extra tasks to complete in each mission to get full synchronization offers great incentive to be as sneaky as possible or whatever else it may ask you to do, and these added a lot of entertainment value to the proceedings for me. So yeah, these missions are a lot more fun. Although I found the travel time between those missions much more of a chore this go around. I couldn't quite place why it was such a bother, as the free running is still fun, you're mainly in Rome for the whole game, and fast travel is unlockable, but then it finally hit me. Wherever you end up at the end of the last mission will always be extremely far away from the next objective marker. I don't understand why the game can't be structured to have you hop from mission to mission within a general area before expanding out elsewhere, but then I guess you have the distance to trek to pad out the runtime in the way that open world games do, which I find unnecessary. I enjoyed Brotherhood and am glad I played it, but I'm not sure any subsequent games would get me to love this series. There's a few too many annoyances to contend with for fun I've already experienced elsewhere. I do have a sneaking suspicion I would have gotten more out of this series had I played it earlier in my gaming days, but then I guess it's a bit like Desmond needing to use the Animus to become an assassin. I really had to be there.